Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review, my channel where I look at rock music, metal music, any of the new releases out and about in the world of rock, metal, punk. I should really come up with some sort of snappy intro. I seem to say the same thing every time I do a review and it's not that great. Anyway, I'll just rattle on with the review. Unfortunately, this is probably a week later than when it came out, but last week, 3 albums I wanted to look at all came out on the same day, so I had to sort of pick and choose. We had Partway Drive and this album by Frank Turner called Be More Kind, and also Isan had a new album out which I'm going to try and get a review of, but they all came out on May the 4th, so you know, I don't like to just give an album one spin and chuck a review up. I've lived with the album for a few days now. Parkway Drive I'd already, between me and you, already heard already. So this album, with that caveat, is Frank Turner's new album called Be More Kind. Now, if we look at Frank Turner, he's from the UK. He originally was in a band called Million Dead. They were more of a hardcore punk band. And then in 2006 they sort of disbanded, or 2007, and he went on his own way and created a new solo career for himself. And now his solo career is very different from the sound of Million Dead. He became sort of folk, punk, acoustic-led sort of solo artist. And he released his debut album in 2007 called Sleepers for the Weak. He followed it up in 2008 with the sort of now regarded classic Love Iron Song. Then 2009 Poetry for the Deed came out. 2011 England Keep My Bones. 2013 was Take Their Heart. And 2015 was Positive Songs for Negative People. Which brings us round now to 2018, where he's releasing his new album entitled Be More Kind. If you look at the sound of Frank Turner, he hasn't really altered his sound very much throughout his career, and I think that's a point to make when we come on to this album. Because Frank Turner, like I said before, he's like a folky, punk, acoustic-based artist, and he's always retained that sort of punk ethic. And if anyone's ever read his book or heard his book on Audible, as read by himself, really entertaining book. It sort of tracks his career from when he finished with Million Dead, became a solo artist, all the way up to sort of headlining, was it headlining or supporting? Anyway, playing at Wembley Arena. A really, really interesting book, and it's a great insight into sort of a DIY ethic that Frank Turner retains to this day, and a very punk attitude he has just from playing house parties and pubs, just to rocking up and playing a few songs, getting a few quid for it, to becoming the mainstream artist he is today. And I think that's what I like about Frank Turner, and I think that's why the rock world still consider Frank Turner one of their own, because he's come from that background, and it's a real punk ethic he has. And his sound's always retained a bit of a punk edge. I mean, you get so many bland acoustic artists nowadays, all around the charts. You look at the Ed Sheerans of this world, and it's good that Frank Turner can still hit an acoustic guitar with enough energy and enough punk attitude to make it really stomp. And that's what I've loved about Frank Turner. And that's what brings us on now to 2018's Be More Kind. Now, as I said, he hasn't really changed his sound that much throughout his career. Well, it's when we get to this album, he does change his sound a little bit. Not a drastic, massive departure from what he's done before. It's still Frank Turner. But well, let's just go through it a little bit. It opens up with a song called Don't Worry. Don't Worry is a very sort of slow, melancholic, electro soft rock number, which I'm not really that sure about, and but it sort of goes by without noticing. It sort of feels like a bit of an intro into the album, and the album really kicks off with the second song called 1933, which is a belter of a track, and it's everything I love about Frank Turner in one song. It's him holding a mirror up to society, you know, him standing on a soapbox and shouting at society and the way the world is nowadays and how it's not right, and it's like being back in 1933, the whole idea behind the song. And that's great. I love it when Frank's got an axe to grind. I love it when he's got an attitude to his voice, and I love it when he's got a bit of spite and spit in his voice when he plays guitar. And 1933's got a great pace to it. It really bounces along. That's great. But after that, it almost all drops off this album straight away into pop world, let's say. Especially the song Little Changes, which has been released prior to the album, so people may have heard it anyway. And Little Changes is, in essence, a pop ditty. It's got a nice little melody, but it's very sappy. And I think the whole album really is one idea stretched over 13 songs. The album title, Be More Kind. That's the idea behind the album. It's a great sentiment. I love the sentiment of the album. We should all be better to each other, society, the world. We should be better to our other halves. We should be better to everyone. And it's a great idea, but to stretch that thread over 13 songs seems like a long way. And it sort of drifts into being a bit sappy and a bit too nice in my case, let's say. And really, the pace doesn't pick up that much after little changes. I remember seeing him live, actually, just sort of digressing a little bit. I remember seeing him live in 2014 at Sonosphere Festival, when Sonosphere was a thing. And if anyone went to Sonosphere, what a great festival that was. And it's sad that it's not around nowadays. But I remember him playing on the Saturday, and it was Iron Maiden Day. And, you know, God forbid anyone supporting Iron Maiden, they won't get an easy run. And he was sandwiched on the bill between, I think, Anthrax and Deftones. And it was the first time I'd heard him or seen him. And it was really good. And he stood up there with an acoustic guitar, and he had his backing band of mainly acoustic and folk sort of instruments and musicians. And they really belted out some stomping numbers that really got everyone's foot tapping, got people real drinking music. Think of like the Dropkick Murphys kind of thing, but just a little dial down from that. And that's kind of what he was, and that's what I love about Frank Turner. And that seems to have been dropped out on this album. There doesn't seem to be the big acoustic punk songs anymore. It seems to be all electric guitar driven, but it doesn't make it any rockier. It in fact makes it softer and more sort of sappy and saccharine, and that's a shame. It's not a terrible album. You know, I'm not really saying the album's a bad thing. It's just, where's the fire gone? Where's the punk gone? Where's that attitude and that energy that he's retained throughout his career? That seems to have dropped off. Songs like Going Nowhere sort of sounds like lounge music to me. And the whole album's got a very sort of 80s electro rock feel to it. Not the actual sounds of the songs, but the sort of the production. The drums sound very hollow. Like I say, it's not terrible. It's just not that great, I think. And if you look at it's 13 songs, as I said before. And for an album of 13 songs and be very one-paced, that's when it starts to become a struggle. And I think it starts to drag this album a bit. There's too many slow songs on the album. He's always had slower numbers, don't get me wrong, but his needle's always like strayed between punk and slower songs on all the albums. If you're looking for the Get Betters of this world, or the Recoveries, or songs like that, you won't find them on here. The needle never strays that far into punk attitude or punk territory. It stays firmly in melancholic and somber and sappy. I keep saying sappy, but I can't think of a better word. It's very sort of easygoing, easy listening. Which is a horrible word. You know, albums should be challenging. I don't find this that challenging. I find it's a good bit of songwriting, but what I love about Frank Turner seems to have gone. And to stretch an idea over this many songs about being more nice and being more kind does seem to wear thin after a while. I like the sentiment, but for this many songs and for this long, it seems to drag, wear thin a little bit. I know he's always based other albums like England Keep My Bones was all about national identity, and you had Take Deck Heart, which was a self-deprecating self-examination of himself and a real sort of downbeat album, and then Positive Songs for Negative People was uplifting and defiant, and I love that album. And then to go from that to this, which is like, we're just being more nice to each other. All right then, Frank, but I just don't think it's got that bite to it that it needs to have to get that message across sometimes. I'd rather him shout at people and scream in people's faces about being more nice to each other than just a little ditty about making little changes. Maybe that's personal. Too many slow songs you've got. Be More Kind is only the fourth song down, and it feels like the album closer. And you've got The Lifeboats, which isn't a terrible song. It's more like a Nick Cave or Bob Dylan type number. And you've got the last song, Get It Right, which is a real slow song. And, I'm giving a couple of songs a free pass here because, I could chuck Going Nowhere in there and There She Is, which are also very slow songs, but they still get a free pass when there's more downbeaten songs than that in here. It's not a dreadful album. It's just nothing really memorable for me on it. And mind you saying that, I've given it 3 or 4 listens now. And I will say that it's got better on the second listen. I remember hearing it for the first time last week and I thought, oh no, this isn't good. I'm not going to like this album. But I've given it a fair few spins. And there's a couple of decent tracks on it. I do like Blackout. It's got a real funky bass to it. Like I say, I love 1933. I think that's a great song. And the others are okay, let's say. Be More Kind as a slow number isn't bad at all. but it just seems there's too many of songs like that on it. And I know people have got to evolve and progress, and I said it before in my reviews of the Parkway Drive album. I said there's no point they said themselves, there's no point making the same album over and over and over again, because who's going to listen to it? You just listen to the previous album. So I understand bands needing to evolve and progress, and it feels like on like Parkway Drive, that was where they needed to go to, and it was a natural evolution. On this, it seems like Frank Turner has already nailed down his niche throughout the years, and he's now decided, I'll just do something a little bit different. For me, he didn't need to. I loved what he was doing previously. I thought it was great. This is okay. And I think if you're already a Frank Turner fan, if you're a big Frank Turner fan, you'll love this album. You'll think it's great. If you're a casual listener to Frank Turner or new to him, I doubt this is going to turn you on to him. Go back and check out England Keep My Bones or Positive Songs from Negative People. They're great albums. And anyway, I'd love to hear what everyone else has got to think about it. If there'll be people who think I'm talking shit about this album, and they'll love it. I'm sure there will be. Leave a comment. I'm not being disparaging towards Frank Turner. I love the guy. I think he's great. I love his attitude. I love what he stands for. But this album, you can't just have honesty throughout it all and make bad songs sound good. It doesn't always work. And that's what I find with this album. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a comment, subscribe, all that kind of jazz. And I'll see you soon. Cheers.